New data just came out from Barna about young people leading the charge in church attendance. Let's talk about it. This is such an important conversation to have if you're going to see where things are going in society today. On September the 2nd, new Barna data, young adults lead a resurgence in church attendance. Okay, here's some of the quick highlights. For the first time in decades, younger adults, Gen Z and Millennials, that's me, are now the most regular churchgoers, outpacing older generations. Look at that, outpacing older generations who once formed the backbone of church attendance. And yeah, typically you think about church primarily for old people, but now young people are leading the charge. They're outpacing them. Why it matters. This shift signals a new opportunity for ministry. Younger adults are showing spiritual curiosity and a desire for belonging, but even as they attend more often than older adults, they still attend less than half the time. So every touch point matters. Weekly rhythms can no longer be assumed. Church leaders will need to reimagine discipleship pathways, relational connections, and volunteer engagement in ways that resonate with a younger majority. Could you imagine that in more churches, a younger majority? Look at this quote here at the end. It's typically older adults who are the most loyal churchgoers. This data represents good news for church leaders and adds to the picture that spiritual renewal is shaping Gen Z and millennials today. Spiritual renewal. I've been predicting this for a long time, even before there were ever studies out. So this is really exciting for me to see. Check out this graph here. The number of weekends U.S. churchgoers attend church per month, 2025. All church adults, 1.6 weekends per month. Gen Z and millennials at the top, 1.8, 1.9. Gen X beneath that, 1.6. Boomers, even lower. Elders, just as low. So among the oldest generations in the entire population, they have the lowest numbers of church attendance, which again seems staggeringly different than what seems to be the assumed reality. But it's very different now. Young people leading the charge in church attendance, the church-going spike. If you look at this here, in 2020, during the time of all that stuff, church attendance in Gen Z was at an all-time low. Now they've almost doubled that. It's nearly doubled since 2020, their weekly church attendance. And millennials, look at this, right up there with them. So if you see the trajectory here, they both took a nosedive from 2017-ish to 2020, both millennials and Gen Z. Now they both are rising at basically the same rate. They're almost at exactly the same levels, but they're rising right next to one another, which says something very interesting about what is happening in the culture, and there are some theories for this. Here's a clip from the Washington Examiner, including a conversation with Richard Ackerman, redeemed Zoomer, young guy who has seen a lot of this happen himself.
The most surprising aspects about this 21st century Jesus revolution is that many in Gen Z are choosing the simplicity of the traditional or historic church over the lights and fog machines of the modern megachurch.
The mainline Protestant churches like the PCUSA retained the traditional church style and structure, but became very contemporary in its beliefs and started affirming, LGBT. The more evangelical, non-denominational churches, they kept a lot of Christian social teaching, a lot of biblical social teaching, but they became extremely contemporary in their style and their structure and became nothing that resembles historic Christianity whatsoever.
What is, in my mind, the single greatest error in the church is its partnership with the world.
Some of the more historic denominations coming out of the Reformation in the 1500s became far left in terms of their moral teaching, their social teaching. And then these evangelical churches who don't have a root in some historic denomination from the 1500s were very conservative, much more conservative in the moral teaching, the social teaching, but were very liberal in terms of their practices, their regular church practices. They could do pretty much whatever they want. And so he's saying that has led to a desire for people to go back to the roots, deeper roots in historic Christianity. Now, what I would love to argue for young people, or for all people in general, is don't go back to the 1500s, go back to the Church of the Bible. And I believe that when you do that, you'll find the Church of Christ. I'm a member of Churches of Christ. But either way, the point is that young people have a desire, a hunger for true, the real Christianity, not superficial nonsense.
The increase in technology has given Gen Z more access to a variety of information.
I think that's been a plus about social media and online, the internet as well, that they can now see different viewpoints, and being able to compare those things, they can go closer to truth in a lot of areas, and they're very curious about truth.
However, the ability to explore a variety of options has also led to many people choosing to attend a church different from the one they attended growing up.
A lot of Gen Z Christians were raised non-denominational, which might be sort of morally and socially conservative, but it's definitely not aesthetically conservative, and it's definitely not a traditional form of Christianity. So there's a lot of young Gen Z people, especially Gen Z men, who are flocking out of that and going into more traditional forms of Christianity because they desire tradition and beauty in a sort of sea of moral chaos.
Yeah, we want things to be grounded in truth, in scripture. And there's much more beauty in that than just things being really cool or something like that. We don't want cool stuff. We want what's right. We want what's true. And again, I think I have a good theory for why there's such a resurgence on the part of young people when it comes to church attendance.
It would be remiss to talk about trends in Gen Z without highlighting that this generation is shown to have a higher rate of anxiety and depression than any previous. This has likely been a factor in the shift, as several converts to more traditional denominations cited seeking a more stable theology as one of their primary reasons for the change.
It's almost like without God, things aren't going to be grounded in the way that they're supposed to be. And that is absolutely true. So with the bad outcomes that the society has brought about for individual people, it's caused people to say, I think I need Christianity. And that's exactly what my argument is. If you look at just the older generations, look at how it declines from about 2009 down. All of them, Gen X, boomers, and elders, all of the attendance has been declining since about 2009 or so. How is that possible? So how is it possible that the oldest generations can be declining so much and yet the youngest people are increasing? I think the answer is actually very simple. The younger generations have had a first-hand look at what the world is like when it becomes more godless. I think the youngest generations, Gen X, Millennials, have had a first-hand look at the world elders, boomers, and Gen X brought about in their increasing levels of godlessness, and they don't like that world. And they find that a world that is godless has no real foundation, no structure, no purpose for living life itself, which obviously would increase the amount of anxiety and depression there is. And they realize there must be some grounding factor here. Otherwise, nothing really makes sense at all. And then they see Christianity all the while, though it's been dwindling in the past up until now. They see Christianity and they go, look at how much that works for people. Look at how even just on a pragmatic level, it works so well. Maybe there is something to that system. Maybe there is something to those beliefs. Maybe they are true. And then they try it for themselves and they go, wow, this really works. There is nothing like Christianity. I need to be closer to this and therefore undoing the mistakes of the generations above me. I need to be closer to this than far away from this, because only this really makes sense out of the world, my life, all of the problems. And it turns out there's actually evidence for this. I really think that is behind the resurgence of this. So if I could give any advice to other Christians from an evangelistic perspective, understand that a lot of young people just as a group are really, if they're not actively considering Christianity, they're very open to it right now. They're more likely to be open to it because they see what this world is as a result of godlessness. And so then if they can get a closer look at Christianity, they will look at it much more favorably as a possible good way to live your life, or the possible best and ultimately good way to live your life. The only good way to live your life. So think about that. I'm very curious to hear what you have to say. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, consider supporting on Patreon. If you do, for as little as $5 a month, you get the extended version of this and every video that I do. But let me know what you think. Leave a comment. I'm very curious to hear what you have to say. What is your explanation for why the church is growing on the part of our youngest generations? Let me know. I love you so much, Lord willing. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Goodbye.